A lot of people think that the American Revolution first entered upstate New York with the events at Fort Stanwix. They forget about the Battle of Valcour Island. Haven't heard of either of these? I submit that it's because a major figure in both of these conflicts was a man who would go on to become one of the greatest traders of all time, Benedict Arnold. Before his treachery, though, the man was a legend. One of the best battlefield commanders in the Continental Army, apart from George Washington, of course. And his actions during the Battle of Valcour Island demonstrate it. This clash between American and British naval forces played a crucial role in shaping the course of the war, especially when it comes to New York. Here was the situation. The Americans invaded Canada at the start of the American Revolution. So the British were planning to launch a counteroffensive with the aim of gaining control over the strategically important Hudson River Valley. If they were successful, it would have allowed them to establish a connection between their forces in Canada and those down in New York City, effectively splitting the colonies in half. Recognizing the importance of controlling this waterway, both American and British forces essentially engaged in an arms race to build naval fleets. Despite facing shortages of supplies, manpower, and just about everything else, Arnold's fleet grew to include 17 vessels of various sizes by the end of the summer of 1776. And with this makeshift armada, the Americans set sail on the waters of Lake Champlain. The British, under the command of General Guy Carleton, had employed more advanced shipbuilding techniques, and on October 9th, their fleet entered the lake as well. After about 2 days, they found Arnold's fleet, which was strategically positioned near Valcour Island to limit the British advantage. The ensuing battle saw intense exchanges of cannon fire, with both sides sustaining heavy losses. Arnold's makeshift fleet, comprising vessels such as the Enterprise and the Royal Savage, squared off against Carleton's imposing force. The battle would rage on for hours, with both sides exchanging punishing volleys of cannon fire. Many American ships suffered significant damage, and the Royal Savage was lost. And as night fell, Arnold realized their situation. And so he cunningly planned to retreat under the cover of darkness. Utilizing the element of surprise and favorable wind conditions, the majority of the American fleet managed to slip right past the British blockade and escape southward. By dawn, the British realized that the Americans had eluded them, and so they would pursue. And they would do so relentlessly in the days that followed, and they would close in on the American fleet near Split Rock. Facing overwhelming odds, Arnold made the difficult decision to scorch his remaining ships rather than surrender them to the enemy. And these burning vessels pretty much marked the end of the naval engagement. Ultimately, the Battle of Valcour Island ended in a strategic victory for the British, who gained control of Lake Champlain. However, the Americans were successful in effectively stalling the British advance, which would buy the colonies crucial time to strengthen their defenses. And it would all come to a head the following year, when the British would resume fighting in upstate New York, that time coming for Fort Stanwix and ultimately Saratoga. After the Battle of Valcour Island, surprisingly, or perhaps unsurprisingly, Benedict Arnold faced criticism and distrust from his fellow Americans. And in a few years, his path would take a dark turn. But that doesn't mean we should forget about this battle. Have a good one.